All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Ariana Sessoms. I am with Futures Without Violence, based in our Washington, D.C. office. And I'm also a member of NRCDV's Intimate Partner Violence Prevention Council. So super excited to be here with y'all. And I'm going to be serving as your virtual room monitor today. So this is the Learning Circle on Youth Wellbeing with the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Network Connect. And I'm happy to introduce our two amazing presenters, starting with Joe Myers, he, him, who is the Prevention Director at the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence. After studying philosophy and women and gender studies at West Chester University of Pennsylvania, Joe worked for a local comprehensive crime victims and rape crisis center in Chester County, Pennsylvania, for 9.5 years. Joe started his career at the center as a prevention educator and left as the director, working to grow partnerships with the organization, infuse primary prevention strategies into all their education efforts. Joe started at the coalition in June of 2023 and is contributing to the Delta Ahead project for the state of Delaware. Round of applause for Joe. Exciting to have you here. And then Cierra Hall-Hipkins with Network Connect. She is a passionate advocate for youth and families rooted in her hometown of Wilmington. As a devoted wife and mother, she understands the importance of community support and nurturing the next generation. With a strong foundation in mental health, Cierra began her career at Shepherd Pratt Psychiatric Hospital, where she honed her skills in managing programs for youth and adults. Over the past decade, she has held leadership positions in several nonprofit organizations, including her role as the director of the Northeast region for Baltimore's Humanim, Inc., where she successfully expanded the organization's reach. Additionally, Cierra serves on the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence's board and was honored as Technically's 2022 Culture Builder of the Year. Let's go. Cierra's unwavering commitment to community, mental health advocacy, and family services inspires those around her, making a positive impact in the lives of many. Welcome, welcome to Cierra. So excited to have you all here. Before I turn it over to them, if any of y'all participants have questions, comments, anything you want to share, feel free at any point. This is just going to be an interactive session, and we're happy to hear what questions you have for these amazing folks. But I'll turn it on over to our presenters to kick us off and start sharing. So on to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ariana. Thank you, Casey, for being here and for supporting this and for inviting us out here today. This is really exciting. I'm very excited to get to highlight the work, Sarah, that you've been doing for so many years. DCADV has so many just important partners, some folks who are here as guests and you who are here speaking. So I'm incredibly grateful that you took the time to join us today.
I'm so excited to be here. I put that in the chat. I am just honored to be able to share the Network Connect story, but I'm so excited about being able to collaborate and learn with other leaders and workers in the field of youth well-being. So let's get into it.
Awesome. So just to kick us off, Sarah, can you tell us a little bit just about you, right? Anything you like to highlight about yourself? Like, how'd you come into this work? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Sure. It's passion. I think that's what gets me out the bed, and especially in today's time, it's always
Mhm.
thinking about the hard work. I'm from Wilmington. I've lived, born and raised, but I've lived in a couple other states. But everywhere I've gone, I've noticed that connection and just having strong support systems have been really instrumental in who I am today. And so I've become a strong support system and an advocate for connection. And so in my work, I studied at University of Maryland Eastern Shore and went straight to Shepherd Pratt, like she mentioned. And I realized that there were gaps in services in every state that focused on youth well-being and really breaking the stigma of mental health and vulnerable populations. And so that has been my dedication, that has been my passion. And if you were to look at my resume, you'd see it throughout, the work that I do. And when I became a mom, it just amplified the need to build very emotional, intelligent little people. And so that's what I've been focused on.
I love that so much. I also love I'm not a like I'm a Pennsylvanian, but something I've met about so many Delawareans is that it's a magnet. Like folks love to come back to Delaware. It's really awesome.
I think we all end up back home. I'm glad that, that's a part of the atmosphere here, because you learn so much from being away, but it's something special about Delaware. It's small but mighty.
Mhm. Absolutely. So let's talk about Network Connects. Like, how did y'all come to be, and how did y'all pick your focus, and how'd you grow?
So, like I said, that passion, that hard work has been a part of everything. And we actually I founded Network Connect in 2019, literally months before COVID came. And so we had been building programs and curriculum for young people at the time, really focused on workforce development in 2019. And then in 2020, of course, we did a hard pivot as the school started to close. We actually launched what we called, everyone calls them learning pods, and we were calling them learning spaces before they had that name. But we launched learning spaces across our state to really show and support the young people that were already receiving services from our workforce development work, but also others who were not. And so we, as an agency, literally started and grew in COVID. We went from 2 employees to now 58 employees. We serve the entire state of Delaware. We have lots of programs, and I'll get into that. And as we talk, seven programs function under our nonprofit, but our mission is really to grow underserved communities, connect those communities to resources through collective impact approaches. And so we believe in partnership, and so that's why DCADV has been just it's been an honor to be a partner, because we have some of the same beliefs and mission values.
Mhm.
And so Network Connect, though we're young, we're mighty. And I think our story really shows a story of perseverance and resilience, because we grew in the midst of chaos.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's so impressive to have such growth in, I guess we're coming on almost 6 years. Like that's huge. Holy smokes. Um, when I came to DCADV back in 2023, your name was mentioned a lot around the coalition and the work that you were doing at Network Connect. Can you talk a little bit about the history between our organizations?
Absolutely. So, in the midst of those learning spaces that I just spoke about, of course, many organizations were reaching out, because other organizations were closing their doors and we were opening ours. And so I met the executive director, Sue Ryan of DCADV, in that work. And she fell in love with the passion of the work and the fact that we were actually bringing young people in safely.
Mhm.
And we began our partnership there. We actually we trained our team at the time in the curriculum Coaching Boys into Men, with support from the DCADV, and we spent weeks and weeks together, figuring out how we're going to put these in learning spaces. And in the midst of that, schools began to open back up, and we dispatched our staff to schools to use the Coaching Boys into Men curriculum. At the time, we were in 6 schools. Right now, across the state, we're in 12.
That's awesome. So
Mhm.
I'm going a little off script, but
That's
how did that
fine.
look? How was that like coming together during that time? Like, because y'all were still growing, right? So what
Right.
did that look like for y'all?
It really was. So everything we do is an impact data driven.
Mhm.
We kind of followed the trends along with Sue and you're in the DCADV's team, of where the need was most. And it looked like us, one, learning the curriculum, certifying in that, getting all those materials that are needed to go into schools. We spent some time with the direct educators, of course, also training them in what we were going to teach their young people. And
Mhm.
then we were just free to go out and actually use the curriculum. And I don't know if you guys know about Coaching Boys into Men. It's a national evidence-based model. And it's so unique because it takes the prevention work, but it adds it on to sports. And the students just ate that part up because they were already connected to the sports, of course. So we use basketball and football and soccer. And then we realize we get a lot of males. And so we pivot a little bit with permission to use the curriculum for healing activities because that's another program of ours. So we started incorporating with music and drumming and dance. And it worked just the same because that team atmosphere exists in the arts as well. And so it was really a learning process that both Network Connect and DCADV went through together
Mhm.
for the because of the impact data that we were receiving and realizing that the populations that we wanted to serve needed a little bit of flexibility in what we were building. And so that really shaped also the way we partner with our partners.
Mhm.
Making sure that we're data driven from start to finish is really important.
Yeah, that's really cool because I think like I've been working around coaching the boys and or coaching boys into men for like my whole career. It was like one of the first endeavors in Pennsylvania that I tried to pick up and encourage folks to use. And I was not successful. Like it was hard for us to get that in places. So when I came to DCADV, my friend and colleague Brooke was telling me all about like some of the challenges they had, which I could empathize with. But then also she was singing your praises, right? She was talking about how great it was to have y'all as a partner because you were able to you had that connection with youth. And when we're talking about data driven, you're talking about feedback from young people, right? You're talking about the people exactly who you're working with. So it's so awesome that you're able to use that for a larger group than just athletes, but for where all these young folks can find a connection to it.
Yeah, I think that's the part. It's the secret sauce. I'm telling y'all
Mhm.
the secrets. It's the one that we use. We are the community that we serve. So our board and the team members that we hire are we literally recruit from the neighborhoods that we're going to go into. And I think that makes a big difference because the students know the people, right? They see them in their neighborhoods. They may have heard of them. But then also we provide autonomy. It's a part of the work that we do
Mhm.
by allowing them to have voice in their classroom. So the first week to 2 weeks of them engaging with our Network Connect team members, we call them ambassadors. Um, it's really getting to know you. It's the first part of those core competencies for social emotional learning. Who are you? What are your passions? Why do you show up to school every day? What things do you need support around? How do you want to see, this class in the future? And then what are you looking to learn from us? And I think that has a buy-in that other programs don't because they are pretty much building their class for the semester or however long we're there right there in the first 2 weeks. Like we know what we're going to teach, but then we come back and pivot and make it fit the needs of the students.
That's so awesome. I've been very fortunate to get to come by your office when the young folks are there, and there is like it's an electricity. Like it's very clear that everybody who's there is like they're just joyous in that space. So like you create such an environment that brings them in, and it seems like that energy is going right back into the community where they get to have an awesome impact.
Yeah, one of the major, focuses for me is just as an advocate, as a mom, as a Wilmington or Delawarean, is to bring love into what we do. And so I think when you enter a Network Connect space, you feel it. It is it is evident. And also, again, that autonomy, just this is their space. Like my office is here, but you've seen you come in and there are children everywhere or adults waiting and they own this space. They know they can come here.
Mhm.
Um, I do think having that, it's a part of our core values. So living by our values and our mission is really important. And when we get out of line or I feel like we're not really Because you can't, especially we get weighted down. We were talking a little bit about burnout.
Mhm.
When you feel that burnout or when you see it in your team, the morale tells on itself beforehand. We immediately reset and we deep dive into values, or we start some professional development that brings excitement back to everyday work.
That's so awesome. That's yeah, that's taking care of the community by taking care of yourselves too, right? Like you're saying, you're of the community, so you're not burning out community members by bringing them on board. You're empowering, which is so awesome. So
Thank you.
yeah, oh my gosh. So I guess talk to me, how have you grown? Like how have your services changed over the years? Do y'all still use the curriculum? Like what does that look like?
We definitely still use the curriculum. And that curriculum, we with DCADV in 2020, we focused on middle school. Now the curriculum is being used with high schoolers as well.
Nice.
And a little, we don't use CBIM directly with the elementary, but they're engaging in some of that core work that came from our partnership. And we have grown from those two programs I spoke to you about. Learning spaces no longer exist, but we have our Race to Wellness, which stands for Reverse the Effects of Adverse Childhood Experiences. And that's where CBIM really lives. It is a part of our healing work. And so we go into schools and we teach healing activities, as I mentioned, and we use CBIM regularly when doing so. We also host a summer camp every summer that is really focused on social emotional learning and wellness for middle schoolers and elementary. So we start at fourth grade, and they spend their summer learning the window and mirror concept, right? And
Mhm.
understand each week is a different theme around the SEL, but then they also are learning the different coping skills and healing activities and things that they can do for themselves to grow. Our race kits are part of that program as well, where we actually have tangible coping mechanisms in a kit that and describes how you use them. So there are mirrors and then affirmation cards so that you can look at yourself and say these amazing things to yourself. We also have journals and journal prompts and partnerships with counselors who will put information in there so that they can connect to a therapist or a helping person. So Race Lives, and we launched Community Wellbeing Ambassadors in 2021. Right now, we have 35 community well-being ambassadors throughout the state of Delaware. And so, a community well-being ambassador is a certified community health worker. The difference, though, is that we are also focused. Everything we do has some sort of evidence-based curriculum attached to it. Our ambassadors are focused on SOD, substance use disorder, and social determinants of health. And so we use the skills for psychological recovery as our guiding curriculum for that work. So they will hold a caseload. They go out into the community door to door and meet people in coffee shops or at bus stops and teach the skills for psychological recovery, but also help connect them, identify their most pressing need based on Maslow's hierarchy, and then and connect them to a long-term resource connection so that they can start to build their recovery process. And so that program has kind of grown tremendously. We start out with 10 and now we have over 35. We still have our Future Culture Creators, which Future Culture Creators is our flagship program. It's how we started in 2019, where we hire young people ages 14 to 18. They are paid $15 an hour to come and learn for 90 days with us. They focus on three core areas. So, of course, stigma, mental health, and trauma. And they also have hard and soft skills training. The uniqueness is their hard skill is community engagement. And so
Mhm.
they use the ideate process to host a teen town hall across the state. And so they will use connection circles, which is a restorative practice. And each circle has a topic, and they run it from start to finish. And then they produce a report that they provide to our legislators. When they're done with us those 90 days, we follow them for an additional 90 days to secure long-term employment. So we do placement for them as well. And that program has grown tremendously. We just graduated. 147 young people have come through that program since it started, and we are now serving all 3 counties of Delaware. We also have a Wilmington Street Team. So I don't know, you guys familiar with Newark Street Team, and that model has done great work in Newark, New Jersey. We asked them, well, actually, our city government had reached out to them to come and do a landscape analysis, and then they found us and said, "Hey, you're doing this, and we want you to be a part of the launch of a street team here in Wilmington." And so we have 18 members who are trained community public safety professionals, which means they respond to violent events in 2 areas in our Wilmington area. But they also provide case management for either victim or perp to make sure that retaliation and to decrease violence in our high violence areas. And so that work is about 2 years old, and we've seen decrease in violence in both of our districts. And that's in partnership with the City of Wilmington, the Wilmington Police Department, and the Center for Structural Equity. It is a collective impact project. Everything we do is a collective impact project. We believe in collective impact. And so I have to come back and talk about how important doing what you do best and partnering with everyone else to do the other things, the mission drift. We don't want that. So a lot of our work is partner with others. And so those are just some of the programs. I would welcome you guys to go and look at our website, but those are the major programs, and other programs spin off of them based on community need. But that work has been just a blessing to our community. We are serving somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 people on an annual basis throughout our entire network.
That's just incredible.
Wow, this is amazing, Cierra. And like hearing there's so many things. Oh my goodness, you're doing such amazing work, and so many collaborations, and really like the conversation around supporting the young people's mental health and all of the different resources they have access to. I want to lift up a comment in the chat where an individual said, hearing that the kids have a connection and a voice is really great. They had a conversation with their niece this morning about how she wants to be homeschooled because she feels disconnected at the school. And it's really making her emotionally isolated when she goes to school. And so really important to think about youth isolation, especially talking about after the height of the pandemic and what that looked like. So wondering if you could speak at all to that. And then also someone asked about the window and mirror exercise, more about that.
Is it Rochelle? Rochelle, I think to honor your niece for being an advocate for herself is so important. So I hope you will do that. Yes, even our students now feel isolated. It was amplified in COVID. The amount of time that we spent just checking in with one another during those learning spaces, or talking to them about eventually we all are going to go outside. One day we won't have to wear these masks, and building hope. But I also one of the things we did as they were transitioning back, and maybe Rochelle, you could use this, was calling the schools and making sure that they were addressing those needs as well. And so giving them pointers on, and training staff, or pointing them in the direction of agencies who can train them on the trauma-informed care. And, students learn when they feel loved. They come to school most times to be loved. They want that connection. And so if they aren't doing that well, it does isolate them. And then attendance drops, and just, reading levels change. And so I think, encouraging the school, especially your niece's teachers, to seek those things, almost demanding it, because it's their right to make sure it's incorporated. And I'm a fan of homeschools, but I also think the amount of connection you can have in a building full of people your age is priceless when done well. So I would say talk to the school, put some pressure on them to incorporate some of these innovative things we're talking about today. And then as far as the windows and mirror, you guys haven't heard, this is one of my favorite things. So when we think of ourselves as we think about who we are and how we feel, and sometimes we forget to think about how we show up in spaces. And so just like a window means I'm staring out the window and I'm looking at the things, and I'm understanding how they affect me or how I think about them, right, or how they relate to me. I'm sorry, how the world is seen. And the mirror is me. So the mirror is how I see myself, and what are my passions, and what are my ticks or triggers. And the window is the opposite. So I'm sorry, I screwed that up. The opposite is, how do people see me? How am I showing up in spaces? What trust is a big thing we go through. What trust activities am I experiencing, and how well are they going, right? How am I showing up in my connections to others? And so if you can imagine, with fourth graders, fifth graders, and sixth graders, those are fun concepts to go through in our summer. And we spend a week in different parts of the window and mirror. But the first thing they're learning is, who am I? And it's two who am I's. Who am I that I think I am? And then who am I that other people see? So sometimes they will interview each one of the activities is they'll interview each other. And they'll talk about what their favorite food or favorite music, and then they'll go to someone, and that person will then have to interview them or ask them questions based on how they see them. You're always listening to this song, or I notice you never tie your shoes, and the light bulbs that go off, like, I didn't realize that is people are attaching that to me as a person. And so you start to see behavior change because they want to be those people that they wrote their bios about. So window and mirror is just, I'm sorry that I didn't go into detail well, but I would encourage you to go onto the Castle website, and just they have window and mirror activities that you can use in your spaces as well. I agree, we could all benefit from it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. That's so helpful to kind of work with that at such a young age, to be able to kind of get that reflection in just helps to make those better habits, right? To be thinking about like that empathy of like, well, what am I like? Who am I, and how do people perceive me, kind of thing. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
could you, so again, going a little off script here, because you talk about how collective impact is such an important part of your work, but could you give like just an overview of your collective impact theory and how you use that for everything?
And it's different than the traditional collective impact. So to us, collective impact is strong partnership. And that is defined by, of course, a strong MOU. So it's written out that we understand and we agree. But the concepts of those are, again, staying close to your mission. So what are you doing well? And how can it add to maybe the service or the project that you have in the space? So it's really defining your roles, right, and respecting those roles. But then also, one of the major parts of what we do is the data, making sure that there's a shared data component so that we're gathering all the aspects of the work. And then, so data sharing is a part of that. And then constant meeting. We call them communities of practice, where we're constantly planning or addressing issues collectively with all the agencies so that we're on the same page. And then we will also, with permission from our community members, or you might call them clients, with permission from the people we serve, we will review in our community of practice their concerns. So if we have, for example, with Coaching Boys into Men in DCADV, we were in one of the alternative schools, and the alternative school lead, myself, and someone from the DCADV team would meet to discuss our work to make sure we weren't have young people falling through the cracks. And then when we had issues with certain young people, or they were presented with things in their personal lives, we will be able to brainstorm which agency is best to approach it and how we do so. So collective impact is more than just saying, hey, we work together. It's really a framework to make sure that you are addressing the issues of the people you serve, but also um, forming partnerships that are effective,
Mhm.
making sure that you're leading and serving with integrity.
That's so awesome because it just sounds like you kind of build this table and bring everybody to it, and then everybody stays there, right? Like it's the community members, it's the people providing like supports, and then everybody's just building with each other, rather than like, I don't know, sometimes like popping in and popping out. Like it just seems like y'all always have this line open to each other.
Yeah, it's a working partnership, really. And if it's done well, you like with our community well-being ambassadors and our street team work, it allows you to seek even funding together because you've
Mm,
piloted this work and you know your roles. And now you can collectively go and seek funding for your work, which I don't know about you guys and what state you're in. I know our funders love to see us attack issues together in collaboration.
that's so cool. So with all of that, like what types of challenges have you and Network Connect faced over the years, and like how did you meet those challenges?
Oh, I think with any nonprofit agency, we're all experiencing challenges with changes in our the way we work, right? Over the years, we've seen challenges in we're different, meaning we it takes us a little bit to pop up a service because we spend a lot of time in planning. And so in the beginning, we had to go from taking 6 months of planning to getting it down now to 30 days. But that planning period is important.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a challenge and making sure we got those things right. And then it's always because we hire from our community, I don't see it as a challenge. It's definitely something we pay attention to. The amount of time we spend developing our team members to make sure that they are experts and where we dispatch them is costly. And
Mm,
so we've we've come up with some innovative ways and partnerships to make sure that we are all, highly trained and leading and serving with integrity. Another challenge is, Delaware's landscape is very small. And so one of the things I think that, makes us unique and is the reason why we grew so fast is because we avoid mission drift. And with that, um, sometimes in small areas or even larger cities you're constantly competing for funds, and we see funding as opportunities for partnership. And
mhm.
so it really helping other agencies see it that way as well was a challenge. I think more and more we're seeing that is changing in this landscape. I also love to see when agencies kind of adapt the things that we've started and it becomes kind of an industry standard. And so I think that's happening now. Not to say we can stake claim for that, but it was something that was innovative that is now on the radar of all, I would say, leaders of agencies. So, and then of course, community first. There's not enough housing across the
Mhm.
country. Um, there are young people who we serve who have been homeless for years or couch surfing, and so making sure we're um, holding our resources, the resources that we use, and the people who we connect to accountable to those things. So we're not asking you to change them, but be, use integrity when you're serving so that that's not a, uh, that's not a barrier for our young people as they're developing.
Mm.
Housing is a big one. And then also transportation and we talked about isolation. Those are all community challenges that I'm sure, resonate with everyone on the call.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it speaks to what you've been saying is like the integrity of your values, the integrity of your work, that you've been able to grow so much because you're from the community, of the community, like everybody who's in that space, they're broadcasting their trust because you get to continue working with them, right? Like,
Agreed.
if something smelled fishy, they would call it out really quickly, but it's great because you're there with them. So that's so
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, and I want to highlight too, Joe. From the community means different things. So the I'm from Wilmington, and so I know Wilmington in and out. But when we expanded into Sussex County, that's not a place that I frequent. I know a lot about it, but it's not a place that I am personally from. And so our from the community means that we respect the communities that we go into, even when they are different from what we live and look like.
Mhm.
And we hear from them, we listen to them, we do landscape analysis, we hire those people,
Mhm.
and then they begin to serve their own communities. And I think a lot of agencies are pivoting to that model now, but it's really important because the way you serve is only strong when the community has bought in. And so you're wasting dollars if you're serving 3, 4, 5 people. When you have someone who is an advocate and who knows and walks the walks of the people that you're trying to serve, Hispanic, Black, Brown, Haitian, you need to pull from that community as resources and lift them up by providing livable wages. And you know, that's what from the community means to us.
That's so awesome. Um, so with that, what are some of the things that you're most proud of accomplishing?
I try. This year, I spent a lot of time being awarded, but I try not to focus on those. If you, it's gonna be weird, but I get most of my joy when our young people are going to college or they found a job. Have you ever seen a teen who's been looking for a job for a couple months and they landed? That joy is that's my check right there. I could retire off of those things. So I'm most happy about our placement rates and our connections, our exit surveys. I was just jumping for joy a couple weeks ago when we finished our exit survey. So we survey everybody once they're finished with services or they're exiting out. And one of the survey responses said that they said the person by name, one of our ambassadors, instilled or reassured them to have faith in agencies again. That's a heavy statement. Like, this is a person who felt isolated, felt disconnected, and because of her work with one of the community well-being ambassadors, now has faith in agencies again. Those are the things that excite me. I could talk about the fact that I was just awarded by the state of Delaware, or our August quarterly, or you one of you quoted the technically Delawares. Those things don't give me as much joy as when we have the success of our communities, or you see a community go from, shootings every day to now we haven't seen one in 3 months. So I think those are the things that bring me most joy.
I mean, that's just incredible. That's so awesome, Sierra. So what are you hoping for the future? Like, what's next for y'all? What do you hope to continue growing into?
I want to, last year, our strategic plan focused on growing within.
Mhm.
So building up our teams, building up our middle management, making sure we are professionally trained, including myself. I've been participating in several leadership programs just to
Mhm.
stay. I'm a lifetime learner, and I hope I stay that way forever. And then this year, our focus will shift in January to kind of growing outward, not necessarily creating programs, but finding communities where we don't exist, or organizations like ours don't exist, and partnering alongside agencies to help them stand up and use some of our culture, some of our framework to do those things in their cities. So that's what we're hope to do soon.
I love it all so much, and I'm so excited to be there with y'all while you're doing this, because you were just doing such incredible work, and it's truly like cup filling for me to watch it y'all just be so incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is
So
network limited to statewide work, or are you open? We are. So that's what I mean. We are right now. We're statewide, and I think we fill up Delaware. Um, but in this next year, that's exactly what we're focusing on. And we don't want to be the be all. We want to partner alongside you and help you build what works best in your city or state, using some of our technique. And that'll be our focus come 2026.
so cool. I love it so much. I know I've been asking all the questions today, and I've had some great ones from the audience too, but would anybody want to come off mute and join the conversation? Have any questions or thoughts about all this?
Hey, I am not typically asking questions in these sessions, but I'm just really wondering, so thank you for sharing about all of your really impactful work, Sierra. And I'm wondering sort of at the point of collaboration between your two organizations, like what has been from each of your perspectives, what has been the impact on how has it strengthened each of your work and each of your organizations to be partnering with each other?
I can start. I know for me, partnering with DCADV early on when we first started it was very important because DCADV has a mission that is very impactful, but also they have policies, structures. Even I'm a board member now. Just watching the board and how it operates has helped me as a leader for my own agency. And then our partnership with the Coaching Boys into Men curriculum was really pivotal because it was the first time that we were really diving deep into evidence-based curriculum and understanding what evidence-based meant and being able to use it and adjust it the way that worked best for the communities that we were going to serve. And now I think we spend so much time together serving in the community. It's almost like we're cousins or something. Like you see us out, and some people are referred to us from DCADV, and we refer folks to DCADV as well.
Yeah, I know for me, when I came to the state, I think I mentioned this on Monday at the town hall. Um, where I was looking for prevention friends, and Cierra was one of the first ones who, like, not only was your voice elevated, but also folks were like, let's go to Network Connect, like, let's go talk to folks. Like, you showed me around, you gave me one of those race kits. I have a jump rope in my desk if I ever am feeling some kind of way at work, which is really helpful. Yeah. But it was, I came from working on a county level and kind of knowing everyone, and then coming to a state where I knew so few people. So for me personally, it was really important to meet folks who are doing exactly what you're doing, Sierra, which is being in the community, like growing these relationships, and having that specific impact in that space. And then everything you have mentioned, like from collective impact to addressing the social determinants of health, social emotional learning, all of those things are right in line with the hopes that I have been having here in Delaware. It's like finding folks who are doing that work because of the way it's going to make a safer community, right? You could spend your entire day not talking about domestic violence, but you're spending your entire day preventing it. So for me, that's just like so important. And it's just, I always know that I can pick up the phone and be like, hey, I'm gonna come through and like let's like chit chat about something. And I think that's really important for me.
I agree. 100% I agree. Well, can I ask a question to the audience? Listening to Joe and I and the work that we're doing, what have you heard that resonates with the work that you all are doing every day? I'm a teacher, y'all, so you know I'll call on someone. Teacher by spirit.
I also have a couple some friends down in Kenton, Sussex who are in the room right now who I don't want to call on them by name, but they know I would do it.
I was going to start with Chanel because I know she'll answer.
Chanel,
Oh, I'm here. I'm sorry. I couldn't get off the mute. It resonates with me because when I started Network Connect, I was attracted to it because I always wanted to have a community center when I was younger. And like now, even though I'm the HR manager, I'm able to still bring on the people on board and see the work and how we affect and have an impact on the community that we serve. I love seeing the people that we work with grow within the organization and be able to give back to the community and help it expands, not just like from a mental health aspect or a well-being aspect, but also like within their family, breaking generational curses and things like that. So it's super impactful for me.
Thanks, Chanel. Anyone else want to share? Well, I will say one of the things that I think is very important for people who are working in the prevention work every day is when you have opportunities in spaces like this one to cherish them, because this work is not easy. Like, we didn't talk about the sleepless nights or the time that the funding is ending and you have to figure out where the next dollar is coming from, or the workplace dynamics, right? And so I really hope that we've shared things that are valuable, that you will follow up on some of the things that I've said. You'll look for the windows and mirrors, and you'll check Coaching Boys into Men out, but also that you'll take time for yourself, because you can't pour from an empty cup. And so when you have these spaces and there are things that you're experiencing, share them, talk to them, hear from other people, because that's how communities grow.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you for doing this. I appreciate like just you so much. Like we were talking a little bit beforehand about just what your day looked like, and I'm so grateful that you could come here and share with everybody. You know, this is just so awesome. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
This has been so wonderful. Just hearing you all chat, hearing, just like seeing your connection and partnership in action in this conversation has been beautiful. And I love that ending, Cierra, but I kind of want to hear more from both of you. Like, when these partnerships and when this work gets really difficult, what do you do to take care of yourself or take care of each other?
I love that question. I will say lately, my team, two of them are on here, so I have to be honest, have been getting on me that I'm not doing this enough. I'm not spending time with self enough, and I'm a preacher of it, so I can't be a hypocrite. But one of the things I love to read, and so yes, accountability. I love to read. I I love a nice book by some water, just mind off for a minute, just in a book. But another thing that I love to do is write. And so grant writing has been my only writing lately, but I'm working on getting back into journaling. In the work though, in the everyday, when situations come up, it's the pause for me. It's the deep breath, um, stopping and assessing and realizing that this can't be bad. This can't be worse than the situation or the fire you put out just 4 minutes ago. So live in that reality that, we can't fix everything, but we do survive it all.
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm right there with you, Sarah. I like to read as well. I've been trying to do that as much as possible, but I also try to like get some time in with positive people in my life. Like, I'm very fortunate to have professionally and personally so many really rad folks around me who keep me from like falling off my own self. Like, so I really, yeah, right. It's good to have so many folks. I do on the writing end. I shared with DCADV at a retreat a few weeks ago, like the practice of writing haiku. Back in 2023, I tried to write a haiku every day, and I didn't succeed, but I wrote a lot of them, and some of them were even pretty okay. But DCADV really liked messed around with that on with us. So I got some good feedback from colleagues, and even Sue, our executive director, sending me haiku about stuff in the middle of meetings. It's really sweet.
I love a haiku. We might have to bring that back as a challenge.
Oh, heck yes, let's do it.
I can see
So,
Sue eat that up also.
She really does.
so in addition to you two leading a haiku writing workshop in the near future that we will all attend, is there anything you're excited about, or partnerships or projects that are coming up that that's giving you some excitement?
I have several things. Some of them I can't say because Nate is on the call. I'm really excited about our work in well-being and expanding it into different forms. So there's still the same program, but pivoting based on data to put things right in the neighborhood is something we have coming up, and I'm really excited about that. Being able to serve people and they can walk out their door and go and encounter an ambassador. So I'm excited about that work.
Yeah, I think for me, transparency, like we're working on the next like Delta reporting period that's coming up. So October, in addition to Domestic Violence Awareness Month, is just a lot of looking at the work that's being done. And one of our Delta partners, People's Place, is on this call right now. So they're going to get to see my stress at our meetings coming up, which is delightful. But they are people who fill my cup, much like Cierra. That helps me get through those things. And then since we're like halfway through Delta Ahead, my plan is to try to find more fun and exciting stuff to close it out, right? Halfway, now it's time for us to really move and shake. So I'm going to try to figure some stuff out, something that could make it more, as much impact as we can with the resources that we're given. So
I love that. As much
People's
impact
Place.
as we can with the
yeah.
resources we have. Well, thank you all so much. This has been a lovely conversation. Folks, I've put their email and websites in the chat. Please reach out, please connect, build those relationships. If you have not been to Delaware, get over there, because I do love me. Visit to Luce, visit to Rehoboth. Always a good time, even in the off season. But don't go during the off season, because that's when I go. Like the beaches, to be clear. No, it's a great time. Well, thank you both so much. This has been lovely. Thank you, everyone who's attended. And again, reach out with any questions or comments or connections. And don't forget to fill out our survey before you head out today. We really always appreciate feedback. And we hope to connect with you all and share space with you all again soon.